Mr. Linton Stephen Ingram, his wife Anna T. Ingram, Mr. Henry Alexander Hunt, Miss Adella Hunt Logan, Miss Biddy Mason, Bishop Lucious Holsey, Dr. Zachery Hubert, the baddest one, Dr. Charles Lincoln Harper, and Robert T. Ingram. Y'all don't realize the Ingram family has carried us on their shoulder for a long time, even into the Hunt line. Miss Katie Hunt. I'm gonna do a big story on Miss Katie Hunt. Miss Katie Hunt would tear you up. Cause Miss Katie Hunt was like, y'all gonna come blow my house up? Come on, blow it up. But when you get here, you probably gonna get blown up yourself. Ain't that right, granddaughter? And Mr. Wilkins Hunt. So now, and one more, Mr. Dr. Carlton Morris.
That's a Wilkins Hunt.
Wilkins. Huh? Wilkins Hunt. Okay. So let me go through their brief story because they're all tied in together. Now, Mr. Ingram was born enslaved here in Hancock County in 1855. He was sold, him and his mother was sold from their family to Linton Stevens, which he bears that person's name. And Linton Stevens is what Linton, Georgia is, Linton down there is named after. And he was an evil enslaver. And so he grew up with him, and after the emancipation, Eli Barnes and William Harrison got the first school started. And that's where Mr. Ingram learned how to read and write before they burned it down. Okay, Mr. Ingram, the craziest thing happened to him. He was 15 years old and his father was in debt, and so he had to become an indentured servant, which means he had to work for that person until his father's debt was paid. And that person was so mean to him that one night, in the middle of the night, with no shoes and just a sack on his back, he ran away. And he ran away to Crawfordville, but where he ran away is even crazier because he ended up with Alexander Hamilton Stephen, the vice president of the Confederacy. But I had to do research because I had to understand why would he go there. And then I found out that it was a connection with his mother. And the second connection was Mr. Alexander Hamilton went to jail. And I think God talked to him a couple times while he was in there about what he had just done. And for some reason, he didn't want to tell his other counterparts, but he had a change of heart of what about the black race. And one night, he took him in, and one night, one of the generals were there, and they were saying that black people didn't have the capacity of a monkey, and they won't be able to read or write. And Alexander Stevens said, well, I got a young man that know how to read or write, and I'm gonna teach him Latin. And they bet $1 that he couldn't learn. He taught him Latin, and he took it in 1 month. And Latin, he took Latin in, and he realized that Stevens was, that Mr. Ingram was basically a genius. And so he paid for his schooling. He went to the first Morehouse College down in Augusta, Georgia. That's where Morehouse started at. Then he went to Atlanta University and graduated in 1875. He returned back to school, but Mr. Stevens died, and his original enslaver cut the money off for him, so he had to go to work. But he earned his degree. He worked all the way around Georgia, and he was the superintendent of black schools in Rome, Georgia. Rome, all the way up at the top. Yeah, in 1889. In 1901, in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, he went before the state school board, and he, in front of the white men, whoever he spoke in front of them, he said, my name is Linton Stevens Ingram. I carry a name of a man that enslaved me, so you can call me L.S. Ingram. He did not care to carry the name, so L.S. Ingram is what they called him. And Mr. Ingram said, I want support because I'm going back to Hancock County and I'm about to open up a black college for my people. Not a high school, not an elementary, but a black college. In 1910, in the slave shack that he and his family lived in, he opened Sparta Agricultural and Industrial College with his wife, Miss Edith Ingram. The school was funded, by Harvard, from Harvard University. It was funded by the people in Boston because he had a connection with Booker T. Washington. They designed their first 2-story dormitory. Booker T. Washington did. And Rosenwald funding provided the money for it. In 1920, the first dormitory went up on the property. After that, they had dormitories, they had teachers' college, dormitory, his house, they had a sawmill, they had almost 200 acres of land, of farmland. And they had teachers. He started the thing that went down into our generation. The teachers, the black teachers that were coming out of colleges that couldn't get jobs.
Yeah.
He brought them to Sparta and gave them a job. And we continued that all the way through the 60s, in the 70s and 80s. Sure did. That's what our legacy is. Mr. Lewis, Mr. Warren, all of them gave teachers that couldn't get jobs an opportunity to come to Sparta.
Yeah.
And they stayed. A lot of them stayed. Didn't they stay? They stayed in our community. Yeah. And so the college grew. And so every summer he would go up to collect money from Boston. And so one summer, because his friend Pinchback, who was the governor of Louisiana, the first black governor of Louisiana, said, well, my grandson, he can come down there and run the school while you're up here soliciting money. It's okay. And his grandson was Gene Toomer, a poet, a writer. He came down here and stayed in Sparta for about 8 weeks. And he was the principal of Sparta. He was the principal of that college, or the supervisor, for 8 weeks. While he was here, he wrote a book called Cane, C-A-N-E. It's decrypted because he didn't want the person's names to be known of who he was talking about, because he talked about the conditions that he saw, the conditions that people were in. So I've been trying to help. It's hard, ain't it? It's sure hard. But I found help decrypting it, and I found some of the family members, which I'm gonna, later this year, we're gonna, expose that. Well, not expose, but we're gonna talk about it. But anyway, that college grew, and this little young lady right here, I found her in the census in 1930. She was from Tennessee. She graduated from Fisk, and they gave her a job at Hancock Central High School, okay? And this young lady right here got her first teaching job with them and taught for 10 years here before she moved on to Chicago, where this young lady just died 2 years ago, and she was 104 years old.
Wow.
104 years old, just died. And in her obituary, they say, graduate from Fisk University, but got her first job at Sparta Agriculture and Industrial College in Sparta, Georgia.
Wow.
She went on to teach the children of Chicago. She got her experience from Sparta, Georgia. Okay. So many teachers and people came through. And Mr. Ingram got the approval because he said he wanted to put up he wanted a museum, and he wanted to put up a statue commemorating the slaves of Georgia. And the then Governor Hardeman, who's a hard Republican, they had flipped at the time, said, you are the oldest educator in this state of Georgia. Just ask me what you want. And he told him, he said, you can have it. Mr. Ingram started the process. 2 years later, he died. We never got it. His wife, Anna Ingram, loved that college, loved what saw her husband dream, as you say, have someone to help you with that dream, and she kept that college running. And under her leadership, people like Marilyn Anderson came and sang there. You had people like Booker T. Washington Jr., George Washington Carver. You had Zora Hurston and Langston Hughes all came there. You know why? Because we were in the Green Book. The Green Book that was for Negroes traveling. Hancock County are in the Green Book. Oh. That college is in the Green Book. I do have a picture, I have to get that to you. But yeah, and it said, it told how when they came there, where they fed them, where they slept in the teacher's dormitory, and how great it was. And that when you're traveling from the north to the south, and you hit Hancock County, you stop there for a rest. And so we are in one of the most historical books, the Green Book. Okay? So, unfortunately, during her time, we had some issue about people wanting to destroy the school. They didn't want, it was a successful school, and they burned down the dormitories. She'll build them back. They'll burn down the sawmill, she'll build it back. But after a while, she was using the endowment that he left to keep that school open to our time. She had to use the money to build the colleges, the buildings back. And she started to get elderly. She had a daughter who also was an educator, but her dream, she did not share that dream. And in her last letter that I found in the U.S. Congress archives, they archived her letter. That's how they archived her records. That's how I found out who came to the college. She wrote to Mr. Bond over there at Fort Valley State College, and she told him, I'm tired, I'm older, I can't fight them anymore, and I'm gonna have to let it go. And she said, I can't even write anymore because of the stress. And she sold, the school board convinced her to sell the property to her, and because she lost her dream, she died shortly after. They're both buried on the property next to Mr. McMullen's home on Highway 22, right, going out in Fellowship. They've been there. So, Miss Ingram, after that, that's when, during her time, they changed the name to Ellis Ingram, and they changed it to a high school. So that's why she resigned, because, you know, the school became a high school. But that didn't mean our education level dropped. Because we had people like Henry Hunt. Henry Alexander Hunt was from Sparta. He went over there to Fort Valley and took it from a, as they said in the paper, a mud hole school with one building and created a college. He built buildings. He built all those, and the peach trees down the causeway of going to that county, he put those peach trees there. He put them there, he planted them. Because he was into agriculture. He was into owning your own and growing your own and being self-sufficient. He became the first, he was best friends with W.E. Du Bois. And W.E. Du Bois asked him, he said, Hunt, you can walk off in the right race right now, we'll never see you again. Because that's how light he was. He said, so why don't you do it? And Hunt told him, to deny my race is to deny my mother, and I never deny my mother. So I'm gonna suffer with her. And Hunt went to, not only did he become, W.E. Du Bois made him the first black president of the NAACP in Atlanta. Hunt was running Atlanta along with Charles Lincoln Harper, along with Mr. Ingram. It was about 5 of them. during 1901 all the way to about 1920, when the race riot was going on, those men were handling it. They were over Big Bethel Church, the big church there that Martin Luther King and all their families were a part of. That was Charles Lincoln Harper. He ran that church. And so those guys were working together the whole time, and I put it together because I started finding books with them passing it on to themselves. So let me get down to those bad Ingrams. Oh, Ingram bad. So Mr. Hunt got promoted up to the federal government under Roosevelt, and he was with the black cabinet that was making new laws for black people with Bethune-Cookman. So he went there, but what he did was he passed the torch to Charles Lincoln Harper, who was from Beverly. Charles Lincoln Harper, he took over the NAACP, but Charles Lincoln Harper was the first principal of the first high school that had 4,200 students in Atlanta in 1924. Wow. First principal. He ran that school, but he was fighting. And they say he was about 5'3" and had a club foot, but everybody was scared of him. But anyway, Charles Lincoln Harper fought in the 1930s for equal pay for his teachers and his staff, and the Atlanta School Board eventually got mad and they terminated him. He said, oh, okay. And that's when him and son Hunt said, I passed the torch to you here at NAACP. Do your thing. And he became the president of the NAACP. But not only that, Thurgood Marshall had just came out of college, out of law school. And he came to him and he asked him, he said, Thurgood, I need a high school for my people down in Hancock County. And they got to have the best and the state of art. How we gonna get it? Thurgood said, well, we got to get a petition and we got to get them to sign. But you know it's dangerous because they burn houses and hang people. He said, don't worry about that. I got that taken care of. And who did he call? Wilkins Hunt. Mr. Wilkins Hunt, they called him. And his son-in-law, who was Robert T. Ingram, Wilkins Hunt is Judge Ingram's grandfather and Robert Ingram, her brother's grandfather. And that's her great-grandfather. Put your hand up, Pam. That's your folks. So they got the petition to Mr. Hunt and Mr. Mr. Ingram. And on the night that they were supposed to pick up those documents, they knew how dangerous it was. So Mr. Harper told them, drive me to Greensboro, drop me off in the wood, and I'm gonna catch a ride to Sparta. Because he couldn't drive. Yeah. And someone picked him up in Greensboro in the woods and brought him to Sparta. Then when they came around the ice house. Y'all remember the ice house? Yeah. Got a little bush back there. Yeah. They said he came. Wow. And up the back of the Mason building that's on that street. And said, Mr. Ingram tried to pop the light on. And said, he looked at him and said, don't turn that light on. Where that candle at? And they lit a candle. That man sat there and went through hundreds of petitions to make sure everything was filled that they weren't half done. And when they finished, he looked at both Ingram and Mr. Hunt, and he blew the candle out and disappeared. 5 years later, they went to court, they fought. And it didn't look like they were going to win, but Thurgood Marshall told them, okay, you ain't got to give them some money. What we're going to fight for is going to your school. We're going to fight for desegregation of schools. And this was before all the cases in the middle 50s. And they said, oh no, we're going to get you the money. And they got, Hancock County received $954,000 in 1951. That's short of $1 million. And what happened was the architect, this how I know it's God in this, because I used to investigate architects also. And I went to a firm in Atlanta on a case, and we were just talking, and a young guy said, "So where you from?" And I said, "Sparta." He said, "Oh no, you from Sparta?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "My great-granddaddy drew a plan for the first black high school there." And I was like, "I know you're kidding me." He was like, "No ma'am." He said, "Let me tell you about that school." He said, "NASA was coming in, and so space age. And my great-granddaddy built grandeur schools with big windows and all that. And he was tired. He wanted to do something different. So when Charles Lincoln Harper came to him and said, 'I need the best state-of-the-art,' he thought about NASA. And that's why we had that slanted bus ramp, because he built that school on what they perceived about science and space. And so he told me, he said, "Ma'am," he said, "that school was supposed to be the biggest one in the state of Georgia. And at that time, it was supposed to have the state-of-the-art football field in the back, and the seating was supposed to come up the back of the ground from back that way. And it was supposed to have a football field with a track field around it, a field house." And when he said Olympic-side swimming pool, I believe my knee broke up. Like, swimming pool? What? Oh, that's why. I was like, why was we going down the street, going 2 miles, a mile down the street? And I told him, I said, "Well, we don't have that." He said, "I know." He said, "But I wanted to let you know." And I said, "Okay, you got me now. I'm finna go research it out and find out what happened." And I did. What happened was Charles Lincoln Harper was supposed to oversee that school. And in 1956 or 1957, when they went to, around 55, when they went to break ground, he died suddenly. And that's when the school board said, "We didn't need all of that." And they kept the money, and they sent that it can go down to our old football field. And that's why we never got it. But here's the newspaper article that says, "Small county builds big school, and it's the biggest one in the state at that time." We had the biggest school. We ain't had no gym, no football field, but we had a big school, okay? All right, so that's the story of Mr. Harper and the Ingrams. And when I tell you we stand on the shoulders of these Ingrams, and we need to recognize that. And they continue it in their family. They have always argued and fought for us. And so right before Judge Ingram died, she called for me to come visit her. And I was like, "What's going on?" I didn't know she was ill. And Pam was there that day when she called for me, and I came. And she said, "Beverly," she said, there's something about Hancock County that the people need to know about." And I said, "Okay." She said, "Well, we are an educational county, and we started the educational system in Georgia," which I had already seen that, but she confirmed it. And I said, "Yeah, I've seen that. And we set the rules and the regulation for," because I forgot to tell you, Charles Lincoln Harper started the Teachers Association, the very association that we all are under now. As a black man, he started that. That's why I say he's a bad dude, because he got a park in Atlanta with his statue. And not only did he got a park, but his house is next to Martin Luther King, but he built his house 10 years before they came. So he saw Martin Luther King as a child, as he grew up, and as he came to man. So he was there first, and the house is still standing next to Martin Luther King's family home. And they celebrate him every year in Atlanta. Wow. But they're gonna know now he's from Sparta, because I'm gonna make sure Mr. Dickens, Andrew Dickens, and Brian Kemp, who owed me a favor. I won't go on that. I'm my boss for 8 years. Good Lord. My blood pressure dropped as I retired. But yeah, so we I'm going to legislation, and we're going to change a lot of things and let a lot of people know, because we are a very important stronghold in the state of Georgia, and we got to start back acting like and knowing that we are. We cannot allow any more. We can't sit back humbly and just say, oh well, let it go by. I'm home now.
Yeah.
It's just, whew.
That's all right. Yeah.
That's why I ain't got no boyfriend or no. But that's all right. I was married 20 years before my sweet husband went home.
Yeah.
So I have enough love for those 24 years together. So now my job is the people, where I serve the people as a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
And I had to learn, which unfortunately these young officers don't know. I was that officer that, number one, going home at night, and I ain't standing around arguing with nobody.
Yeah.
Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna figure this out. And if you did wrong, let's straighten it out. You ain't got to go to jail tonight.
Yeah.
You just go back and sleep it off and don't come back over here. And they'll tell you I was that type of person.
Yeah.
I would help you now. You didn't want to get help, you want to try to lay hands on. That was a whole different story, right?